We all want our children to learn efficiently so that they can do well in school and be successful in life. That's what we all want as parents and teachers. To get there, our children need to pass exams to be able to get into university or to get the job or internship that they want. To pass the exams, they need to go through high school, middle school, primary school, possibly even kindergarten or preschool, so that teachers can prepare them step by step for successful exam results. Like it or not, that is our global education system right now as it stands. It's becoming increasingly difficult for teachers to teach a classroom full of children when many of them are fidgeting, they have trouble sitting still and paying attention, or have sensory issues and so on. And unfortunately, more and more children are finding it difficult to learn in the way that teachers were traditionally trained to teach. And even though teachers today know very well of the importance of project and inquiry-based learning and the importance of using different areas of the brain, old habits and rules are hard to break in a school system. We are putting much higher expectations on teachers, sending them to cognitive behavioral training and differentiated learning seminars and such. And we call in the experts and then begin with our extracurricular activities and therapies, desperate to ensure our children have a chance at a successful life. Parents listen to the experts and add more and more activities in order to help their child. Math class, reading programs, gymnastics class, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, etc. And schools offer extracurricular lessons or additional support within school hours because they care about their individual students as well as their class as a whole. Back to the parents who are running around from activity to activity, not really understanding what everyone is doing and questioning what is actually best for their child. Everyone is doing what they can to help our children succeed. I absolutely believe that to be true. And yet, everyone, parents, teachers, and students are increasingly more stressed, frustrated, and just flat out exhausted. So what is going on? Why do so many of our children struggle in school? And why is everyone so stressed out? First of all, our global culture has a history of leaving education to teachers. There's nothing wrong with that. Teachers are professionals and know exactly what they're doing. But learning begins long before a child ever steps into a classroom. And unless the teachers receive a student that has a brain prepared to learn, no matter what teaching styles they use, enabling children to learn efficiently becomes an enormous challenge. In an effort to accelerate academic success, we, the parents, have bought into this idea that we need to push our children, to encourage them to walk before they're developmentally ready, both literally and figuratively, to read and write and perform ahead of their peers in order to give them an advanced start. We've been misguided. The brain just doesn't work that way. You can't rush neurodevelopment. But if we understand the process of development and therefore learning, we can comfortably and confidently slow down and maybe even step back, providing the ideal environment for the brain's perfectly timed individual developmental process, offering relevant and valuable activities along the way, reducing stress for everyone. And ironically, this approach makes it all so much smoother and faster. So let's look at the building blocks of learning efficiency through the development of the brain's three main parts that I mentioned in the previous video. Although these building blocks look simple, as you know by now, the systems that come together are incredibly complex, and I am by no means trying to teach neuroscience here. My intention is to help you understand why the activities that I suggest are more valuable and effective than the continuous and enormously stressful practice of visiting the same problem, math, reading, penmanship, whatever it is, over and over again with little improvement and enormous amounts of frustration. If a child is struggling to read, we enroll them in a reading program, which on the surface makes sense. And for some children, it is a matter of filling in simple gaps in reading skills. But what about those children who go to extracurricular activities and still struggle? That's when we need to put our brain specs on and investigate the systems that need to be in place before reading becomes a natural and efficient ability. Let's start backward. The skills we test for in exams are primarily reading, writing, and math, with additional testing for understanding in different subjects, all requiring executive functions and cognitive ability, memory, attention, logic, and reasoning. All these skills require a well-developed cerebral cortex and corpus callosum, which integrates all the different areas of the brain and allows for the quick and efficient flow of information. When the brain has been allowed to develop step by step, this whole brain learning is ready to take off academically. But before we can get there, we need to ensure that the building blocks have been well developed. We need vision, not only acuity, which is often tested in schools, but also binocularity, which is the ability to focus both eyes on a single object, and ocular motility, which is how the eyes move together. We need audition, including auditory processing and oral motor skills for efficient reading and writing. To develop the building blocks of those skills, children need to develop their ability to use their senses in combination with their bodies, something that happens through a process called proprioception, the ability to perceive where our body is in space, and to use the vestibular system, the system within our inner ear that informs us of our balance. And before those systems develop, we need to make sure our limbic system is also well developed. Relationships and attachments, emotions, imagination, memory, etc. And of course the brain stem, which requires that security and safety and regulates breathing, swallowing, blood pressure, and so on. The brain stem also acts as a channel for all information that passes from the body to the brain, including the information from the vestibular system, the proprioceptors, movement, and the senses, except for the sense of smell, which goes directly to the forebrain without passing through the brain stem, and vision, which travels from the optic nerve directly to the occipital lobe. Any delay or imbalance in the development of these systems can cause social, emotional, behavioral, and learning difficulties as the child moves through the education system. But not because the child is naughty or not wanting to pay attention, but because their system is focusing on something else entirely. Let's go back up the system with our brain specs on and look at how this system works in reality. We can also identify the modern tools and environments that have possibly contributed to these gaps in development and figure out which areas are calling out for our attention. Let's presume a child has had a very nurturing start, lots of love, gentle stimulation, and healthy attachments to mum, dad, or primary caregiver. All is good. Unfortunately, the baby didn't get very much tummy time, maybe because the environment wasn't safe enough, or mum didn't know the importance of tummy time, or maybe the baby squealed too much and made a big fuss. For whatever reason, tummy time was limited. In the first few weeks of life, tummy time has a significant role to play in early brain development. It prepares the brain and the body for the next stage, which is crawling. Because of the freedom of movement in both arms and legs, the baby is also stimulating the development of that corpus callosum. Even though there is no mobility yet, specific movement and therefore interhemispheric integration, which is both sides of the brain working together, is definitely off to a good start. With lots of opportunities to practice crawling still on the tummy, the freedom of movement on both sides of the body stimulates both sides of the brain, and the development of the corpus callosum goes into overdrive. Crawling is also connected to the development of vision, particularly convergence, which is when both eyes move inward together to focus on an object, very important for reading. And imagine the sensory experience a baby will get if they are exposed to different surfaces to crawl on, all in a clean and safe environment, of course. All this adding to the input through the senses and output through movement that the brain needs to develop and organize itself. Next up, creeping. This is what we call it when babies get up onto their hands and knees and crawl with their tummies off the ground. Before now, the baby has mostly relied on its caregivers to challenge its balance, rocking and swaying in mum's arms, or gently being thrown up into the air in fits of giggles. Now up on the knees, the baby can begin to develop that vestibular system. Specific movement in a cross pattern continues to develop the corpus callosum and offer many opportunities for interhemispheric integration, which leads to a quick and efficient flow of information later on in the classroom. Vision is also improving at this point, and spying something across the room gives the baby a purpose for all this creeping and crawling. Last but not least in this mini series of development is walking. The baby will wibble and wobble around for a while, and as the vestibular system gets stronger and coordination and vision improve, the child will begin to walk in a cross pattern, eventually running. As any parent knows, this is the most exhausting phase of development as the child never seems to sit still, and all for good reason. As you can see, this is an extremely simple developmental map that I've drawn here. Clearly, so much more is going on with a child in the first year of life, and all systems must develop in a balanced and specific order. But you will notice that 3 particular areas are of interest. The vestibular system, interhemispheric integration, and vision are the stars of the show. They are also areas that, when not developed optimally, can cause social, emotional, behavioral, and learning issues later on. Let's just explore a few of the modern-day childhood habits that can hinder the developmental process. Baby bounces versus tummy time. Baby bounces may help soothe the baby and even challenge the vestibular system a little bit, but they also restrict specific movement. That's both sides of the body having the freedom to move. This can also slow down muscle development, which in turn may slow down the solidification of bones. You don't have to throw away the baby bouncer, but tummy time, and a lot of it, is essential. Exercaucers and walkers versus crawling time. While these toys can strengthen the leg muscles, and we're all eager for our children to get up and walk, they also restrict specific movement considerably and impede the opportunity to develop the vestibular system and interhemispheric integration. Also, by always having a visual focus close by with toys attached to the walker, the opportunity to develop other areas of vision are limited. We want babies to use their entire field of vision and develop long and short distances and their peripheral vision too. Unfortunately, with TVs and iPads and mobile devices and even car seats with their limited field of vision, our children are not given many opportunities to exercise those eye muscles. Later, I'll give you some specific movements that can ensure that your child's vision has the best chance to develop. Of course, health and safety must be our #1 priority, but with careful consideration and planning, we can accommodate the environment to include all the modern conveniences and accessories and offer the necessary opportunities for natural development. And please don't worry if your child is already in grade school and you recognize some gaps already. This is why I've created this course, to offer you information and activities that will help to fill in those gaps.